In this video, we're going to be talking about slicking up the action of your Glock pistol with the Glockstore Pyramid Trigger System. Are you ready? Stand by. So welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, please consider subscribing. Check out the description. There's a bunch of links in there. Consider supporting me on Patreon. Got some cool stuff going on over there. And at a minimum, please like this video and follow me on Instagram if you haven't done so already. So the beauty of a Glock pistol is that it's reasonably affordable and super reliable. Now, as the gun comes from the factory, it is completely serviceable. There are a lot of people who are satisfied with Glocks with just the 25-cent trigger job, which I have a video on doing, and even the stock sights that come on the gun. Now, service pistols have come a long way to the point that they're even building purpose-built variants for competition that are very easy to shoot at speed. And the Glock in its base form is at a bit of a disadvantage, but one of the ways that you can help level the playing field is with a trigger job. While a trigger job is not going to make you a better shooter, if you have bad fundamentals of a trigger press, you're still going to have them with a nicer trigger. But two things that it can do for you is it reduces the amount of force it takes to pull the trigger, which means the amount of force pulling the muzzle off target is reduced potentially. And when you are shooting really fast, you're less likely to pull the target offline when you're jerking the trigger. So in the competition space, a trigger job's generally accepted as a good idea. And you can always build your own with parts from a bunch of different manufacturers, or you can go like with the Pyramid system and buy a pre-assembled kit. And we're gonna dive into what that does for the trigger now. And before we dive in much deeper, I do need to clear the air a little bit. If you're not familiar with the channel, I am a competition shooter who is sponsored, and one of those sponsors is in fact the Glockstore. So a lot of folks can fake enthusiasm. I'm gonna try and be as objective as I can be and just show you what the trigger system does and give you my opinion on it. So take it with a grain of salt. You cannot deny that it improves the quality of the trigger pull. So that all said, let's jump in. So this is my current match gun. It is a Glock 34 Gen 5 complete with the Pyramid trigger. Now I'll do another video talking about all the modifications I have done to this and what I think is worthwhile and what you can probably take a pass on, but we're going to be focusing on the Pyramid trigger. Now I'm using the Ultimate Pyramid Kit, which is basically the complete ignition system, including a extended lightened striker, and everything is tin coated, which makes it have a gold appearance, which is a nice coating because it reduces the amount of friction between the parts. So you don't want a stock Glock when you pull the trigger and it feels like you're taking a lousy stamped piece of metal and dragging it against another lousy piece of stamped metal across a bumpy plastic frame. You know that feeling? Well, the Pyramid system eliminates this by polishing all of the components and then coating them with titanium nitride, which has a gold appearance, sort of like this base pad here. So what ends up happening is the titanium nitride, it makes everything gold, which looks cool, but it has like a lubricity that doesn't need to be lubricated so that the pieces slip past each other. It's also very hard, so the pieces will have a prolonged service life, so I'm told. Now, I have only been shooting this for about 3,000 rounds or so, and it has been very reliable. Before I wiped the gun off to show you that it was gold, you can see this shot of the grimy insides of my gun. But so far, the system has been working really well for me. Now, the Pyramid kit actually comes in six variants. So they have a flat face trigger, which I'm probably gonna check out at the end of this season because I shot the SIG X5 and that trigger feels great, and I'm wondering if a flat face trigger feels good on that. Probably is gonna feel good on a Glock too. But right now I've got the curved one, which is basically the same profile as the OEM trigger, but it's completely flat across the face. You know how on the OEM trigger that feels like there's a little speed bump and then the trigger safety actually digs into your finger and stands proud of the trigger face? That's not a problem on the Pyramid system. The trigger is totally flat and totally comfortable. It does a great job. From there, on the basic kit, which is just the trigger shoe and trigger bar, you can get the complete kit, which is going to have the shoe and bar, plus the trigger housing and double diamond connector, plus the titanium nitride plunger with a reduced power spring, and a tuner pack of striker springs that you can use to reduce or increase your trigger pull. The springs the complete kit comes with is going to be the plunger spring, a 3-pound spring, which would be a really insane trigger, the 4-pound spring, which I'm currently using in the kit, the 4.5-pound spring, and this is probably the one that you want to use if you're using an OEM firing pin if you don't want a gun that becomes ammo sensitive, and an increased 6-pound spring if you must have the best reliability. And then the next step is going to be the ultimate kit, which is what I have, and that's going to give you the extended lightened striker spring, which is also tin coated, and you can see it's kind of cut out there because it's skeletonized. And that extended firing pin is going to do a great job of keeping the gun from going ammo sensitive. Now, my practice ammo is primed with CCI primers, which is generally thought of as being one of the harder primers, but they load really well in my press. So I use that in my practice rounds, and I've not had any issues with this striker and spring configuration. This gun is not ammo sensitive at all. And guys, if you are shooting Glocks, do not make your gun ammo sensitive. It's silly to run the ragged edge to the point that you are potentially going to have to tap rack rounds out of the gun because your gun can't set them off. Part of the reason to shoot a Glock is because they're reliable. So what is the effect of all that? Well, the trigger pull is shortened and the trigger pull weight has been reduced. Now, as you can see in the video I'm overlaying, the trigger pull weight on this gun is set to between about 2 and 2.5 pounds without going ammo sensitive, which is quite an accomplishment. And the trigger pull travel distance has been reduced by a pretty good bit. It's actually setting the trigger face further back, improving the trigger reach on the stock trigger. So if you've got smaller hands, that's a welcome add. And then once you get on the trigger, there's a little bit of wiggle as you get on the wall. There's the wall there, and it is a very, very soft wall. And then you pull straight through and boom, the trigger stops moving. Now, reset is not going to be as positive as the stock Glock due to the reduced power striker spring, but it's still not bad, and it's very short. If you watch, there it is. And then it goes forward just a little bit more to come to a rest. So the trigger pull throw has been reduced dramatically. So as you can see, the kit improves the trigger in pretty much every way you can describe. And it does all this while maintaining all 3 of Glock's internal safety, so the gun is still completely drop safe, which is more than some manufacturers can say out of the factory. Wonder who that could be. If you're not mechanically inclined, realize that because this is a custom system, there may be some adjustment that's needed on the trigger itself. Specifically with the pre-travel adjustment. In order to keep the trigger drop safe, you may have to adjust the pre-travel. Now to do that, you're going to have to either use a soldering iron or a torch to warm up the set screws, which are set with red Loctite on the trigger housing. The screws are turned with an itty bitty Allen key that they provide, and if you don't heat up the screws enough, you can actually twist the Allen key. So if you're experiencing any resistance from the Loctite, apply more heat and try again. Now, the Glockstore does have armors on staff that you can actually call and talk to while doing the install on your system, and they can help you troubleshoot getting it to where it needs to be. Because it is fully custom, it may take some tweaking. So if you're not mechanically inclined, just be aware that that is a can of worms you are potentially opening. Again, I mentioned my trigger dropped right in and worked out of the box, but that's not always the case. And probably the biggest criticism I can make about this is that it comes with a complete trigger system, including everything that I've already talked about, but it does not come with new spring cups to seat the striker spring on the striker. Now, if you've never changed the striker spring before, those little cups are probably the one piece that can get lost when taking a Glock apart the easiest. It'd be nice to have some extras. As it is, you'll have to retain the cups from your OEM striker to put on the new striker and striker spring. And that's honestly not that big a deal. It's pretty standard with most trigger kits, but if you're gonna have a complete system with a striker, it'd be cool if it came with the cups. Now, I actually have a discount code with the Glockstore. It's in the description. It is THM10. So if the Pyramid is a kit that interests you, check that out. And because you've made it this far in the video, you like Glock content, I want to talk about this base pad. I'm going to do another video on this. I'll keep it short, I promise, but this is a brass base pad that they do sell at the Glockstore. This thing's awesome. It adds like 3 ounces of weight to the base of the gun over a standard 140 millimeter aluminum base pad, and it gets 23 +1 rounds reloadable, which is pretty slick. So I've been playing with these. I'm almost 100% sold on them so far, but these are awesome. So these base pads are awesome. If you're checking out the pyramid system, take a look at the brass base pads if you don't have any. I mean, I'll probably switch to these if the testing keeps going well. And so far, the testing is going well. As always, guys, I appreciate you watching. Please hit that like button if you haven't done so already. And a big thank you to the Glockstore for all of their support, including the pyramid trigger that you see before you. So take care, guys, and I'll catch you on the next one. Thanks, guys.